She posted, "Wish my husband looked like Jason Momoa." I replied, "Wish my wife wasn't in my neighbor's pool last night." The comments exploded. I never imagined my marriage would unravel because of a single Facebook post. It wasn't even something explosive, not at first. No fights caught on camera, no screaming matches in the street. Just a little joke from my wife, Sophie, and the internet's endless appetite for watching people's private lives burn in public. It happened on a Thursday evening. I had just gotten home from a 12-hour shift at the warehouse. I worked logistics for a shipping company, long hours, heavy lifting, and endless paperwork when I wasn't on the floor. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid steady. Sophie always said she respected me for working hard, though lately she'd been throwing barbed little comments that made me wonder how true that really was. When I dropped my boots by the door and sank into the couch, Sophie was in the kitchen, phone in hand, wine glass in the other. She was smiling at the screen, tapping with quick little bursts of laughter. I didn't think much of it, until my own phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification, tagged on Facebook. I opened it, expecting maybe a throwback photo or a family memory she wanted to share. Instead, I saw her latest post at the very top of my feed. "Wish my husband looked like Jason Momoa, face with tears of joy, wine glass." Just like that. No context. Just her, drinking wine, publicly announcing to the world that her husband, me, wasn't good enough for her tastes. The comments came fast. Her friends from work piled in with laughing emojis, gifs of Aquaman, and half-serious teasing. "Girl, don't we all? Trade him in. Tell Noah to hit the gym." I stared at the screen. I knew people joked online all the time, and maybe to Sophie it was just harmless banter. But seeing my name turned into the punchline, it didn't feel like a joke. Not when people who knew us, people in our town, were laughing at my expense. The worst part was who joined the thread, our neighbor, Brandon Ellis. He lived 3 houses down, the kind of guy who always just happened to be outside shirtless when Sophie was mowing the lawn. He was younger than me, gym-built, with that smug way of talking like every sentence was a pickup line. I never liked him, but I never had a reason to say anything outright. Until now. Under Sophie's post, Brandon wrote, "Guess your pool nights are better than the gym, soft winking face." And she replied with 3 laughing emojis and a wine glass. That was when my stomach twisted. It wasn't just a careless joke anymore. Brandon's comment implied something more. Something only he and Sophie would understand. And judging by how quickly she replied, she wasn't embarrassed, she wasn't shutting him down. She was encouraging it. I locked my phone and just sat there, staring at the dark TV screen in front of me. Sophie walked into the living room, still sipping her wine, not a care in the world. "You're quiet," she said, settling on the opposite side of the couch. I wanted to ask her right then what the hell that post was supposed to mean. I wanted to shove the phone in her face and demand why she was laughing with Brandon online. But my pride kept me still. The humiliation burned too deep. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I was hurt. Instead, I nodded, just tired. That night, I lay awake while Sophie scrolled on her phone beside me, giggling at things I couldn't see. The blue light from her screen painted her face as she smirked and typed, pausing now and then to delete and retype. I stared at the ceiling, my chest tight, every click of her nails on the screen like a hammer on my skull. Over the next few days, I noticed changes in her routine. She started spending more evenings by the pool. We didn't own one. Brandon did. When I asked why she was always over there, she said, "Kayla invited me." Kayla was Brandon's girlfriend, a sweet woman who worked long shifts at the hospital. I wasn't sure how much pool time she really had to spare. Sometimes Sophie came home later, smelling like chlorine mixed with perfume that wasn't hers. I asked once if Brandon was around when she swam, and she laughed like it was the stupidest question in the world. But the seed was planted. I began noticing little things. Her towel would be damp late at night, though she'd claim she hadn't gone swimming that day. Her phone would light up with messages at midnight, and she'd turn it face down. Once, I walked into the kitchen and saw her flinch, shoving her phone into the counter drawer like a teenager hiding something. Every sign pointed in one direction, and I hated that my mind was connecting the dots so fast. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. Saturday night, I stepped into the backyard to take out the trash. Our yards connected with Brandon's, separated only by a waist-high fence. From his side, I heard splashing, followed by Sophie's laugh. That high, tipsy laugh she only used when she wanted attention. I froze, the trash bag swinging in my hand. It wasn't unusual for Sophie to swim there, I reminded myself. But when I peeked over the fence, what I saw didn't feel right. Brandon was in the pool, shirtless, grinning as he floated lazily on a raft. Sophie sat at the edge, her feet in the water, hair pulled back, wearing the bikini I hadn't seen her in for years. A wine bottle sat open on the patio table, 2 glasses beside it. I ducked back down before they saw me, my heart hammering. That night, I couldn't keep quiet. You've been at Brandon's a lot, I said when she walked in, damp hair wrapped in a towel. She rolled her eyes. Kayla's my friend, Noah. Don't be paranoid. Kayla wasn't there tonight. Her pause was half a second too long. She left early. I wanted to press, to demand details she couldn't twist around. But I bit my tongue again. I had no proof. Just a growing fire in my chest, and a wife who looked me in the eyes and lied without flinching. The turning point came Sunday morning. Sophie was asleep, her phone buzzing on the nightstand. I glanced at it, not intending to snoop, but the preview notification flashed just long enough. Last night was worth the risk. Next time later, the sender's name was hidden, but my gut knew. I took the phone, trying to unlock it, but Sophie stirred, rolling over to shield it with her arm. Don't touch my stuff, she muttered groggily. My hand clenched into a fist. I wanted to shout, to demand answers. But I didn't, because if I accused her and she wriggled free again, she'd only get better at hiding it. Instead, I waited. That evening, I opened Facebook again. Sophie's post was still there, gaining likes and laughs from strangers. Brandon had commented again, this time with a meme of Aquaman holding a trident. Sophie had responded with a flame emoji. I stared at the thread until my vision blurred. And then, without overthinking, I tapped reply. Wish my wife wasn't in my neighbor's pool last night. I hit send. The comment sat under hers, raw and brutal, exposed to everyone who had laughed at me. Within seconds, notifications poured in. Likes, shocked reactions, people tagging each other. And then the flood began, strangers asking if I was serious, locals whispering in group chats, Sophie's friends commenting with nervous little question marks. The internet smelled blood. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. The morning after I dropped my reply under Sophie's post, the world felt different. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing all night. Every time I rolled over in bed, another notification lit up the screen. Likes, shares, comments, even private messages from people I barely knew, asking if it was real. By sunrise, the post had gone viral, at least in our little corner of town. Local gossip pages had screenshotted it. One even titled their thread, Ross Street Neighbors and Scandal. I scrolled in disbelief, reading strangers' theories about my marriage as if we were characters in a soap opera. When Sophie woke, the sound of her gasp told me she'd seen it too. She stormed into the kitchen, phone clenched in her fist. What the hell, Noah? I sat at the table with my coffee, pretending calm. What? You humiliated me. Do you know how many people have messaged me? My coworkers? My family. Her voice cracked into a shriek. I sipped my coffee slowly. You humiliated me first. Remember Jason Momoa? That was a joke, she snapped. You dragged our marriage into the gutter for likes. I set my mug down and looked her dead in the eyes. Sophie, I didn't need likes. I needed the truth out. You put it out there. I just finished it. Her face twisted, caught between rage and panic. She opened her mouth, then shut it, then stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. The fallout was immediate. At work, whispers followed me through the warehouse. Guys on the crew patted me on the back, muttering things like savage, man, and she had it coming. But I wasn't celebrating. Humiliation wasn't victory. It was gasoline on a fire I hadn't even fully lit yet. At home, Sophie alternated between icy silence and explosive arguments. She accused me of trying to ruin her reputation, but every time I mentioned Brandon, her composure cracked. Then came the knock on my door. I opened it to find Brandon himself on the porch, shirtless as usual, trying to look relaxed. But the flush on his cheeks betrayed him. Hey man, he said, voice too casual. Can we talk? I crossed my arms. About what? You know, the post. Look, Sophie and I are just friends. People are reading too much into it. You should take it down before it gets worse. I studied him. His muscles glistened with sweat from what was obviously a staged, just finished working out performance. But his eyes wouldn't meet mine. Funny, I said. Because you're the one who wrote about pool nights. Brandon smirked, trying to shrug it off. Inside joke. With my wife. His smirk faltered. You're blowing this up, Noah. Trust me. This is making you look bad, not her. I closed the door in his face. That night, I couldn't shake his words. Maybe he was right. Maybe I did look like the jealous husband who aired dirty laundry online. But the alternative was worse. To sit quietly while Sophie treated me like a fool. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. So I turned to the only ally I had, technology. Our house security system had cameras facing the driveway and the backyard. Normally, I barely looked at them except to check for porch pirates. But that night, I sat at the computer, scrolling through the footage of the past week. At 11:47 p.m. on Wednesday, there she was. Sophie, slipping out the back door in her towel, hair loose, glancing around like a thief. She disappeared toward Brandon's side of the fence. She returned at 2:13 a.m., hair wet, carrying her bikini balled in her fist. My chest tightened. There was no more denying it. I downloaded the footage, saved it to a flash drive, and hid it in my desk drawer. When I confronted Sophie the next day, I didn't show my cards immediately. "You were out late Wednesday," I said casually as she folded laundry. She didn't flinch. "I couldn't sleep. Went for a walk." "In a bikini?" Her hands froze on a shirt. She looked at me slowly, eyes narrowing. "What are you implying?" "I don't need to imply anything," I said. I saw it. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in her eyes. But just as quickly, she masked it with indignation. "You're spying on me? You're seriously checking cameras like some psycho? You're seriously sneaking out of the house at midnight?" She dropped the shirt, crossing her arms. "Even if I did, so what? You think I'm cheating? You think Brandon is worth throwing our marriage away?" The words hit like acid. She hadn't denied being with him. She had only asked if I thought it was worth ending things over. When I pressed, she lashed out. "You've always been insecure, Noah. You don't trust me. You never have. If you keep this up, I'll tell people you're abusive. You want the neighborhood thinking you're a creep who monitors me like property." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just an argument anymore. She was threatening to weaponize perception, to flip the narrative so I became the villain. The next few days were a blur of tension. Sophie barely spoke to me, except to throw sharp barbs about sleeping on the couch or letting her breathe. But while she played her games, I played mine. I began checking her phone records through our shared plan. Late night, calls to an unknown number, text messages at hours when I was asleep. I dug through the credit card statements. Hotel charges 30 minutes out of town, hidden between grocery store receipts. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. The final blow came from an unlikely source. Kayla, Brandon's girlfriend. One evening, I found her waiting by her car as I pulled into the driveway. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight. "We need to talk," she said. I nodded, heart pounding. "Something's been off with Brandon," she said, wringing her hands. "Late nights. Excuses. I thought it was work, but then I saw Sophie's towel in his car last week. He swore it was nothing, but I don't believe him." Her voice cracked. "Do you?" I hesitated. Then I told her about the camera footage, about the hotel charges. Kayla's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded firmly. I knew it. She opened her purse and pulled out her phone. "Look at this." She showed me screenshots, texts between Brandon and Sophie, messages that left no doubt, plans to meet, compliments about each other's bodies. And the kicker, wish Noah would just figure it out already. I felt my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Kayla whispered, "I'm done with him. But you need to be careful. Sophie won't admit it. She'll twist everything. She's good at that." She was right. Sophie wasn't the type to collapse under evidence. She was the type to burn the whole house down before letting me win. That night, Sophie confronted me again, clearly sensing the walls closing in. "You've been talking to Kayla, haven't you?" she demanded. I didn't answer. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "If you try to ruin me, I swear I'll take you down with me. I'll tell everyone you hit me, that you've been controlling for years. People will believe me, Noah, not you." Her words weren't just threats. They were a roadmap to the battle ahead. I realized then this wasn't about saving the marriage. It was about survival, and I intended to win. By the second week after Sophie's Facebook post, the scandal felt like it had grown its own legs and was running wild without me. People I barely knew were messaging me. Coworkers were whispering. And even at the diner downtown, I caught the staff pointing in my direction when I walked in for coffee. It was surreal, watching strangers pick apart my marriage like it was an episode of reality TV. Sophie pretended it was all mean gossip, but I knew better. She wasn't scared of the gossip. She was scared of me piecing the truth together. The night she threatened to call me abusive was when everything shifted. Up until then, I still half believed we were just caught in some ugly fight that maybe could be patched up. But hearing her calmly say she'd lie to destroy me if it kept her secret safe, that flipped a switch inside me. If she was going to play dirty, then I needed to stop reacting and start preparing. She was going to treat me like the villain no matter what. The only way I'd survive was with evidence. I started with the phone records. We had a joint cell plan, something she probably forgot I had access to. When I logged in and pulled her history, it didn't take long to find the pattern. Long calls after midnight to a number I didn't recognize. I traced it online. A prepaid line, purchased at a convenience store in a town 30 minutes away. Disposable. My stomach turned. Sophie wasn't sloppy. She was careful, almost professional. The realization stung worse than the jokes about Jason Momoa, because it meant she'd been investing effort into making sure I never found out. The credit card bills were next. Most charges were harmless: groceries, gas, drugstore runs. But tucked between them were hotel charges. Motels off the interstate, the kind of places people went when they didn't want to be noticed. I printed the receipts and slid them into a folder. On their own, they weren't proof of anything more than carelessness with money. But when you added the late-night calls and the security footage I already had, the story was getting louder, harder to deny. The camera footage gave me the most sleepless nights. Adjusting brightness, zooming in on the grainy outlines caught by my system's edge. Sophie in a towel, slipping out of the yard at midnight. Brandon in his pool, holding out a drink. The two of them leaning close, their laughter carrying through the still summer night. Never anything that screamed physical affair on camera, but I didn't need a full recording to know what came after she disappeared off-screen. I saved it all, backed up the files twice, and locked one copy in my desk. The final nail came from Kayla. She showed up again, this time looking even worse. Eyes swollen, voice trembling with exhaustion. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She handed me a thumb drive and whispered, "I found these on his tablet." They were texts, synced from Brandon's phone. Weeks of conversations between him and Sophie, talking about meeting up, mocking me and her, complaining about how boring their partners were. But one line stopped me cold. Sophie had typed, "If Noah finds out, I'll say he's abusive. Everyone already thinks he's controlling. He won't stand a chance." She had planned it. Not a panicked bluff in an argument, but a premeditated script. She'd rehearsed my destruction in advance. Kayla's hands shook as she tucked the drive back into mine. "You have to protect yourself. She won't admit anything. She'll spin it, and she's good at that." I could hear the bitterness in her voice, the way betrayal ages people overnight. I promised her I'd use the text wisely, though the truth was, seeing them made my blood boil so hot that I wanted to blow everything up that night. Instead, I waited until Sophie walked in late again, hair damp, towel clinging to her shoulders. I was sitting at the dining table with the folder spread wide, phone logs, receipts, screenshots. She froze when she saw it. Her face drained of color, but she forced a laugh. "What's this supposed to be?" she asked, voice sharp. I kept mine even. "Your life on paper." She picked up a page, skimmed it, and tossed it back down. "Hotels, phone calls, texts from that nosy girlfriend. This doesn't prove anything. Circumstantial." Her chin lifted, that defiant spark in her eye. "No one will believe you." That was when I said Kayla's name. The mask slipped for half a second. "She gave me everything," I said. "The messages, including the part where you spelled out how you'd ruin me." Sophie didn't answer at first. Her jaw tightened, fists curling. Then she hissed, "If you think you're walking away from this clean, you're out of your mind. I'll take the house. I'll take half. You'll end up with nothing." She shouted the last word, her voice echoing off the walls, before slamming the bedroom door so hard a picture frame rattled off its hook. I sat there staring at the papers, realizing the detective work was finished. The puzzle was complete. Now it was about what to do with it. A day later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Brandon's voice was on the line, hushed and tense. "Noah, this is getting out of hand. Sophie's freaking, Kayla's threatening me. Just bury it. No one needs to know." I almost laughed. "Too late." He pressed. "You don't want Sophie as an enemy. She'll torch everything before admitting anything. Trust me." My reply was short. "Then I guess I'll let her burn." And I hung up. That night, Sophie tried a new angle. She came out of the bedroom in the same dress she wore on our first anniversary, hairstyled, perfume clouding the room. She sat close, resting her hand on my arm, her voice soft. "We can fix this. Forget Brandon, forget the post. Start over." For a flicker of a second, the memory of us years ago tugged at me. But then I remembered the text. "I'll say he's abusive." I slid her hand away. "No, we're past that." The smile died instantly. She stood, eyes hard as glass. "You'll regret this," she said, and left the room. After that, I stopped waiting. I compiled everything into one package. Camera clips, phone records, hotel receipts, Kayla's screenshots. I copied it onto 2 drives and brought one to a lawyer I'd quietly contacted. "If she tries anything," I told him, "this goes public." He looked over the evidence, nodded, and said calmly, "You've built a solid case. Just keep your cool. Don't give her anything she can twist." That was the hardest part. Living under the same roof with someone who smiled at me in public but whispered threats on the phone at night. And she did whisper them. I woke one night to hear her pacing in the living room, voice sharp as glass. "I can't wait anymore, Brandon. He's onto us. If he finds everything, it's over." Silence, then her voice again. "I don't care. I'll say whatever I need to say. He won't survive it." I stood in the hallway, recording it quietly on my phone, my pulse hammering as I realized she was rehearsing the same script again. The next morning she stirred sugar into her coffee, smiling faintly. "Thinking of filing papers soon," she said. "Might as well get ahead of it before it gets messy." I stared at her across the table, keeping my voice calm. "Messy? Sophie, it's already messy." She tilted her head with mock innocence. "Depends who tells the story first." That was the moment I knew hesitation would kill me. The detective work was finished, the case airtight. Sophie had her plan, but so did I. The only question left was who would strike first. The weeks of quiet maneuvering ended on a Wednesday night. I remember it because the air was thick with humidity, the kind that makes you feel like the walls are pressing in. Sophie had been strutting around the house with a smug calm, the look of someone who thought she had already won. She spoke casually about lawyers, about figuring out what she was owed, like she was discussing groceries. She thought she had time. She thought she was the one holding the cards. I was done waiting. That night, while Sophie was in the shower, I opened my laptop and uploaded everything. The camera footage, the hotel receipts, the text threads Kayla had given me. I didn't post them randomly. I timed it. Sophie had been trying to paint me as unstable, dropping hints to her friends that I was paranoid, that I might lash out. She was laying the groundwork for her story. So I countered with evidence so detailed, so undeniable, that no amount of twisting could erase it. I posted it all on the same thread where she had once joked about Jason Momoa. The same comment section where people had laughed at me, mocked me, treated me like a punchline. This time, I was the one setting the stage. I typed only a single line above the screenshots. For everyone who wondered, here's the truth. Then I logged out, left the laptop open on the kitchen table, and went to bed. The storm broke faster than I expected. By morning, the post had exploded. Hundreds of comments. Dozens of shares. People who had once smirked at Sophie's joke were now tagging their friends in disbelief, scrolling through the screenshots like they were court documents. Oh my God, look at this text. He caught it all on camera. She actually planned to call him abusive? The tide turned overnight. Strangers who had pitted Sophie now pitted me. I found Sophie standing in the kitchen, staring at the laptop like it was a crime scene. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the evidence. Her face pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. When she noticed me, her expression snapped into fury. How dare you, she hissed. You ruined me. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. No, Sophie, you ruined yourself. I just stopped letting you hide it. She lunged forward, slamming the laptop shut so hard the table shook. Do you realize what you've done? My family will see this. My coworkers. Everyone will think. They won't think, I cut in. They'll know. You wanted to play the victim. You wanted to say I was dangerous. Well, now the truth is out. Her voice cracked, turning shrill. I'll still take the house. I'll still take half. Don't think this changes the law. Maybe, I said calmly. But the law doesn't care about your reputation. And that's already gone. Her eyes burned holes into me. But for the first time since this started, she looked smaller. Cornered. Like she had miscalculated the size of the fire she lit. The rest of the day was chaos. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls and messages. Some were supportive, some nosy, some gleeful at the drama. At work, the warehouse crew surrounded me, half in awe, half in disbelief. Dude, you went nuclear. She's toast, man. I barely responded. It didn't feel like a victory yet. It felt like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it did, sooner than I thought. That evening, Kayla showed up again. Her eyes were red, but her shoulders straighter. She had left Brandon, kicked him out, boxed up his things, and changed the locks. Your post helped me too, she admitted quietly. I didn't have the guts to walk away until everyone saw what he was. She handed me another envelope, hotel receipts in Brandon's name, charges he couldn't deny now that it was all public. If you need them for court, they're yours. I thanked her. For the first time in weeks, I saw something other than fear in her expression. Relief, maybe. Freedom. Meanwhile, Sophie's world started crumbling in real time. Her sister called me, apologizing through gritted teeth for believing Sophie's version of events. Her boss emailed me asking if I could clarify the situation, clearly worried about workplace drama spilling into the office. Even her parents, who had always adored her and barely tolerated me, went silent. She had tried to reach out to them, but when the screenshots made their way into the family group chat, the silence became permanent. Brandon didn't escape either. His own girlfriend was gone, and the receipts Kayla leaked reached his out-of-town wife. Yes, the man was married, something I hadn't even known. The fallout hit him like a freight train. His wife filed for separation. Kayla cut ties. His reputation in the neighborhood disintegrated. Suddenly, the man who always strutted around shirtless in the yard wasn't outside anymore. His house looked deserted, blinds shut, driveway empty. But Sophie still tried to fight. One night, she stood in the living room, suitcase at her side, eyes blazing with desperate anger. You think you've won, she said, her voice shaking. But you've just made it worse. When we divorce, I'll drag you through court. I'll take every penny. You'll what? I asked quietly. Lie again? Accuse me of abuse? Because good luck with that now. Everyone's seen the messages. Her lips trembled. For the first time, she had no words. I watched her drag the suitcase out the front door and slam it behind her. The sound of the lock clicking afterward was the cleanest silence I'd ever heard. The months that followed were a grind of lawyers, paperwork, and endless hearings. But the evidence I had gathered worked exactly as intended. The hotel bills, the texts, the footage, they all stacked into a case so solid that Sophie's lawyer quietly advised her to settle rather than risk a courtroom demolition. In the end, I kept the house. I kept most of what we owned. Sophie moved into a cramped apartment on the other side of town, the same one people whispered about whenever her name came up. The divorce finalized without ceremony. No hugs, no parting words, no shared tears. Just signatures on paper and a judge stamping the end of a marriage that had already burned down months before. After it was over, I thought I would feel relief, maybe even joy. Instead, what I felt was quiet. A strange kind of emptiness, the kind that comes after a storm when the world feels too calm. But it was better than fear, better than humiliation, better than being the man whose wife mocked him publicly while sneaking into the neighbor's pool at midnight. People still bring it up sometimes. At the bar, a guy will clap me on the back and say, "Man, that comment of yours, legendary." At work, someone will joke about Jason Momoa and grin in my direction. I never laugh. I never encourage it. I don't post online anymore, not even jokes. The internet got enough of me already. But deep down, I know one thing. Sophie thought she could rewrite the story, turn me into a villain, make me crumble under lies. Instead, she became the story. Not the glamorous, witty woman who posted jokes over wine, but the woman who destroyed her own life because she thought no one was watching. And me? I walked away with the one thing that mattered most, the truth.